So what do you want to do?
Nothing. I'm just saying that if like naturally in the editing process you find something funny that you'd want to take out, like cut, and you want to save it, you can throw it in the intro sequence as a 10-second like goof, and then we can run into the "Hey, welcome to Storied" or whatever.
Let's try it. Let's do something funny really quick.
No, don't do that. You're the worst.
Let's be funny though.
Yeah.
Can we be funny?
No, not on command or demand.
Hold on, I'm gonna be funny really quick.
Great.
I want to be funny too.
I hope you're recording this.
Fuck. That was the whole reason. Hi, welcome to Storied, a podcast where we take a story idea from one medium and turn it into another.
So this week we're going to be talking about the indie game Inside, and we're going to try turning it into a feature-length movie.
Man, that is some task.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because it has no words in it. That game has no words in it. So it's going to be an interesting choice to decide if the movie's going to have words or not. Dialogue. Dialogue. So I wanted to start by just like... So Sean and I played it a while ago, and I haven't played it in a while, and I assume you haven't played it in a while either. But Chris, you played it really recently, so I wanted to hear about how you felt about that game.
I loved it, and then when I finished playing it, I was like, I kind of don't want to do this episode because it's so.
Well, cancel the episode.
I want to talk about
Thanks
it.
for joining us.
Yep, that was a short one. Next week,
it's something that's so perfectly what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's like
no, I don't.
It's as a game, like it works so well as a game. Do you know what I mean? Like the quietness and the fact that so much of the design is based on just instinct and noticing things and perception. That it's like I was like, shit, I don't know how to carry that to a movie. Do you know what I mean? It was like
yeah, sure.
And then I don't want to lose what makes it good in that process. And
well,
I'm definitely down to try.
Movie. We don't have to make it a good movie.
That's a good point. Well, that's actually a thought I had.
Direct to video.
That's actually a thought I had, was like, maybe this is one where we explore how people fuck up adaptations. You know what I mean? Like how to make the bad version of this movie.
Well, I had the same thought actually a little while ago because I feel like, as I was thinking about this game and trying to turn it into a movie, it occurred to me that this is not a good idea. Right?
Well, you should have stopped me when I pitched this.
No, but I mean, it seems like something that Hollywood would try anyway because the game was successful. And it has so much working against it. So we have two tasks, I think, today. One is to talk about how easily it could get fucked up.
Yeah, for sure.
And what you don't want to do, and then try and pull that back around to what
how
you do.
about we just try to make a movie and we'll let the audience decide whether we're making the shitty version or the good version.
But I think that's a cool topic. Fuck that. I think it's an interesting topic to explore. Just kind of echoing what you said, Sean, just about this game would be on paper. Like when I pitched it to you guys, it was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a really good podcast. And then as you guys explored that a little bit more, you're like, shit, this is actually really hard. And I'm sure that if we were to turn it into a real movie in real life, that would be the exact process they would go through. Except they'd already spent $100,000 on the project or $1 million on the project for how the fuck are we going to finish this thing?
And they hired Damon Lindelof to write it.
Funny, I was thinking David Lynch.
Oh, well,
that would actually be kind of cool. Damon Lindelof would be. It's all this nebulous bullshit that has this facade of feeling smart, but it's not.
Well, that just doesn't ever seem to be an actual point.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, everything I've seen that he's worked on, and maybe it's not him.
I would assume that
doubt at least.
Yeah, I would assume that there's more factors.
But I can't assume. I mean, it just feels like he. The idea or the moment comes before the whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Like you lose the forest.
What is
of the
this
trees
story
kind of
about? Is not something that's ever asked.
Yeah.
It's just
a string of
have a bunch of
beats.
ideas.
Yeah.
It's how brilliant do I think my own ideas are? That's kind of what it feels like every time I watch something.
So you feel like when I pitched David Lynch that he would be a better choice for the Inside movie?
I mean, let's talk about Inside. It at least.
By the way, before you get into this, we're going to spoil the bejesus out of this game.
If you listen to up to now on all of our podcasts, we've spoiled everything we've been talking about. So it shouldn't come as a surprise, but it's definitely
this is specifically important if you're going to ever play this game.
Yeah.
To just stop listening to this right now and go play it. It only takes 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
It's fucking brilliant, and part of the genius of it is the surprises
in the playing of it. Yeah, I agree.
And figuring things out for yourself and finding out, like what the kind of story is that we're going to sort of the undercurrent of.
There's definitely a meta commentary too about the medium and a lot of. I don't know if you get the second ending or not.
And it's not like
I haven't done it yet. But this podcast reminded me I haven't done it.
Okay, because because I'm lazy and I have no time. I just watched it on YouTube, which is not at all the correct way to do that. But I know what it is, so I don't know if you guys want to talk about it or not. If you know what it is or what, but we can bring it up.
I've read about it.
Okay,
I was just reading about it and happened to read about it.
Are you sure you played it, or did you just read about it?
No, I read about the second ending.
Okay, and I don't know if you want it to be spoiled or not, but too bad.
I would
maybe,
but I would just echo that it's not like the game. It's not like there's any like huge twists. It doesn't hinge on that kind of crap. It's just so wonderfully developed on like intrigue. Do you know what I mean? That like if we just tell you everything that happens, you're not going to get that level of like the game starts and you're literally it says like start game and you just dropped into this thing with no instructions and you just start walking.
Yeah. And
then you walk forward and like pretty soon you see that there's guys looking for something with a flashlight, and if you get caught, they attack you, and you start over. You know what I mean?
Well, it very ingeniously sets that up where you know that it's you they're looking for.
Yeah,
like you just know that there's no. I can't remember. It might be the first guy like turns around when he hears you and starts chasing you.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments in that game where you get caught. And there's nothing you can do to avoid it. You just have to outrun your pursuers or dodge them in some interesting way. And a lot of Playdead's games, or the other Playdead game, which is Limbo, is based upon failure.
Yeah, trial and error.
Trial and error and dying a bunch and being like, I was never supposed to do it that way. I was supposed to double back and jump over a fence this way. And there's a lot of trial by error in that game, and that kind of sort of feeds into that mystique of the story.
Well, as an aside, too, I feel like Limbo also was about purgatory in some way.
Yeah, doing the same thing over and over again.
And it was so the mechanic of the game. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But it folded so well together that just the idea of having to redo things over and over again until you get it right.
Yeah,
is what
that does
purgatory
thematically
is.
feel right.
It's a Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Except I don't want to play that goddamn game 10,000 times, or however many years he was stuck in Groundhog Day in that movie. It's like 10,000 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But to circle back again, I think to agree with you, Chris, that game has such a strong sense of place and time, and it doesn't feel the need to give you the scrolling box of text in the beginning that says 17 years ago a thing happened. It just sort of lets you just dive into the world, and by the sheer fact that you are being hunted by these people, the rules are set up immediately. It's don't get caught, stay alive, continue moving from left to right any way you can. There are these guys, these are the other people that are bad, don't let them see you, and then they just let that's the rules of the world are the rules of the game in that way, where there's something bad happening in this world. There's some bad thing has happened in this world, and now there are this force of people that are trying to capture you and do experiments on you or whatever it is. And that's the story and also the mechanic. So you learn the story just by playing the game, which is really interesting, obviously, because it has no words. So it's the only way you can get that stuff out.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by when I was trying to say it's so perfectly what it is. The story is so it's built so much for it to be a game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's where I got scared of it.
But that's why I kind of suggested David Lynch. And, again, I don't know cinematography as well as you guys do, but in my mind, that guy perfectly just uses every tool at his disposal in his particular medium to tell this specific story that he wants to tell, and doesn't really give a shit if you get it all. And that's how I feel about Undead or Inside, because there's clearly a story, and if you get it, cool. If you don't get it, fine. But it's there to dive into if you want to dive into it. But there's a lot of weird imagery and symbolism and just mood and tone. And a lot of the best scenes in Twin Peaks or whatever, or even Eraserhead, are just silent. There's no dialogue, and there's just stuff happening and interesting camera cuts that tell the story and set the tone and the emotional impact of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you're dead on. I think Lynch is he's a very experiential filmmaker. Everything is about what it feels like.
It's sensory.
Yeah. There's no. He's not interested in. I mean, there's a story he's telling, but it's not. It's more about what it feels like to watch, and what it like. He's great at making. Like,
it, yeah.
He always gets a lot of credit for being having very dreamlike and nightmarish imagery, and I think the reason for that is that he spends a lot of time crafting things, especially with sound. He's amazing with sound.
Yeah,
he's actually credited as the sole sound designer in the new Twin Peaks season, which is
crazy.
Impressive. But like everything is building to a moment or give a feeling, a mood, and there's a great beat in Mulholland Drive when they go to that like nightclub in the middle of the night and. They tell you everything's fake, and then you forget that it's fake.
We're talking about like the opera
woman
theater?
starts giving this amazing performance, and then she just passes out in the middle of it.
Yeah,
and then the tape just keeps going, and it's like you told me this was fake, but then you believe it for a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
and there's just like all this weird stuff that happens like that in his films, and I think it's a good comp in terms of the kind of movie that would work as an Inside, because what Inside does really well is give you just enough information to speculate, but no concrete answers.
Yeah,
and you can the boy that you play the game as, is he escaped as one of these husks that they have control in these factories?
Yeah,
are they rounding these people up? Are those people clones of some kind?
Is he sneaking in?
Yeah, is he trying to do something, trying to go get somebody back? Like, there's a million, is he one of them that is defected?
Right, yeah.
You don't know any of that. But all of that is true because of that,
And defining it kind of would take away from the game.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Because it doesn't, I don't know.
Well, just like the name Inside, could mean any number of... It could mean thousands of things. And I think that's a cool, to your point, Sean, just the interpretation of is he inside? Are we inside of him? Is he inside a game? Is he's inside a factory for a short period of time? Is it literal? Is it sort of figurative? Is it symbolic of something else? That's cool. Just talking about Limbo, obviously it's very similar. Just here's the game, here's the name of the game. Let all of the things about the game in its sort of wholeness give you a feeling.
Well, there's also those beats where you take control of another person for a while, and he's being controlled by you.
Right.
So he's inside the game, and then he's inside that person. And then there's even a place that's double stacked.
Yeah, where you jump into another one.
Yeah, jump into another one, and it's layered, this Russian doll layering, and is that where it comes from? I mean, you're right. I mean, it's very interpretable.
All I can see when you said that is just him stuck by his head, his scalp in that thing, and him just doing the run motion with his legs and arms just swinging in the air. I think that's one of my favorite parts of that game, other than the incredible ending, obviously. It's just when you attach yourself to that thing, you're just stuck there, and you're just your limbs are still moving, but you're also controlling another thing.
Yeah,
it's so dumb and good.
It's like a weird VR helmet.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Do you think he can see through their eyes? Or is he just puppeting?
I guess he would have to, right?
They don't have eyes.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. That's the art style, right? I would assume, even though they're all faceless, I assume that the boy has a face, just not represented in the game.
Yeah,
I assume.
It's your assumption.
You're right. It's my sort of assessment of what I get out of that game.
Yeah.
Is that just the art style is sort of simplified, because everything else about them is human. They have 2 arms, 2 legs. They're wearing clothes. Some of them are very clearly factory workers. Some of them are very clearly, janitors or whatever, because they're wearing specific outfits.
But many of the characters do look like they were literally molded together by clay. Do you know what I mean? So it's a kind of there's that facelessness, but there's also especially in many of the puzzles, there's zombie kind of people that follow you around, and some of them are kind of one arm's bigger than the other, and they look like they're half finished.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true.
I mean?
Yeah, that's
well, and then
point.
Later in the game, you find that room that's with the upside down water.
They're chained.
They're floating in the water above you, and they're clearly being made or grown.
I feel there's definitely that's got to be part of it. They're being manufactured, and so when there's that puzzle where you have to stay in step with the line, and then they do the little twist and a little jump. Mm-hmm. These mirror those things. What's interesting about that scene is there's clearly like the black and yellow like striped tape on the ground that's like the warning tape, right, on the certain squares where you have to begin doing those actions. And in the background is just a bunch of people and like families and kids and stuff watching this happen. And so my interpretation of that was that they're actually, it's like a floor mod, like a demonstration of these things, like as if this is a tool you could take home and have in your house to like do like menial tasks for you. And like that's why the little like demonstration box is like, watch in this box they'll jump and twist and turn, and like
you use them like that in the game.
Exactly right. So I feel like
a bunch of them pick you up and throw you into the air,
but they're not freaking anyone else out. Like the rest of the people in the background are just watching this happen and being like, oh, interesting, kind of stroking their chin and just hanging out together, like kids, family. Like, it's not a scary thing. It's just like a completely impassive, neutral thing for them.
Do you know what's interesting that you're making me realize? It's like I wonder if this is it's sort of the whole game is sort of a commentary on the fear of a revolt. You know, like this one kid who's represented, he's red.
Yeah,
you know, he's very stands out.
Communist.
Yeah, in this world of grays and deep blues, gets to this blob of people and then they're terrorized.
Yeah,
it's like you know,
he
at the end of the game, you
mobilizes the riot or whatever.
He basically like breaks out this giant blob,
right?
Of which could just represent like a mob of French Revolution style just taking over, and then you rampage through this factory, which is this dictatorship. You want to call it?
You're smashing a lot of stuff. You're destroying technology. You're like rioting, throwing rocks through windows. Effectively.
And everybody who works there is afraid of you, except for like there's that one guy who like helps you.
He throws the box to you. Or
but it feels like he's a sympathizer in a way.
There's a couple of them. There's a guy that there's one guy that kind of hangs out and like wants to open a door for you, but if you get too close, he gets scared.
Which is that. Yeah, that actually kind of supports that thought too, because obviously in any sort of like riot or uprising, there are people on the fringe who are like, I want to help you out, but I don't want to get killed. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want my family to be in trouble. So they'll like help you out in sort of tangential way, or help those sort of like more riotous or more aggressive revolutionaries out in little ways. And then there's the people who want to keep the status quo, like all the rest of the people who kind of like pull the, like when you they put the little trap box in the center, you have to like jump for it, and then like they open the floor underneath you and they kind of like trap you in the water. So like there's the people who want to just keep re-trap you and like get everything to calm back down to the status quo.
And I think what's so good about that game, and I feel like you guys are on the same page. It's like I wasn't actively defining any of it to any of this level that we're talking about now, but it all makes sense now that we're talking about it.
This could all be bullshit too, by the way.
No, but I think that's definitely, at least some of these thoughts are in there, but like it's so well defined. It's made so well that it doesn't. You don't need to completely define it and still get exactly what it's trying to present.
Just like a David Lynch movie.
Yeah. So,
well, it is a lot about the feeling of playing the game is the point. In a lot of ways. I mean, there's a surface level thing. I think that we could talk all day about interpreting like what is going on, what the game is actually trying to say. I do think that would be something that would be important to get in a movie. If you're gonna make one though. Like what would make the movie about? Like a map for some sort of revolutionary idea seems like a pretty good comp. But like, there's a million things we could talk about. Like, there's other things that went on. There's other experiments. Like, there's things about, like, there's a little creepy mermaid girl.
Oh my God.
Is that the worst? Isn't that the worst part of the whole game? By, like, leaps and bounds, it's the worst part of the game.
Worst in what way?
It's so stressful. Like, everything else in the game pales in comparison. Even, like, the frustrating stuff where you have to, like, avoid the spotlight or get zapped. Like I did that stuff dozens of times to get the timing right, or crank too slow or whatever. The mermaid, and it just goes to speak to the developers. Like, they must have just play tested that so much to get the timing right, because that if you know what you're doing, that mermaid basically grazes your foot as you jump out of the water every time, and like it's terrifying. It's terrifying, and they timed it so perfectly to make it feel like you're 1 second away from death, even when you've done everything perfectly. So there's that level of repetition that you're forced to do to figure stuff out and hop back out of the water, and then give you that chance to sort of save yourself if you screw it up. and she kind of resets her position, so you always kind of like can like
you have to reset her position to get in the water.
Sometimes and sometimes not. Like she will kind of like take a neutral stance in some places where you get a chance to run away from her. But like there's like opening and closing the doors with just enough time that you can skirt underneath the closing door that she can't come after you, and just things that you're like, holy shit, like that was crazy. And it's a 2-dimensional game, but you're so emotionally invested in that, and it's just creepy. And the music's amazing, like everything tonally is just like. You are a second away from getting like choked out and drowned. And it's crazy.
And the art style is just so pessimistic too.
It's all dark, and her hair is really long and black, and it makes you think of like The Ring or whatever, and just creepy imagery like that.
The hair animates so well. The animation in that game is just stellar.
There's an incredible GDC talk about it.
Oh really?
I think it's on YouTube, or maybe it's in the vault. But it's about an hour long. They talk mostly about the Blob. And how they made the Blob, but it's just that itself was so fascinating. And I'm not a technical guy, but it was pretty technical talk, but I was still really enjoying it. And just seeing the amount of care and love and like problem solving they put into the Blob, the huddle they call it. It just like imagining that applied to everything else in the game. It's so like humbling in a way as a game creator, just to see how much work they did just to get their like legs to work right and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's the most seamless animation in a platformer by far, I think, that I've seen.
So that makes me want to ask a question really quickly, just to get back on track about creating a movie out of this. Like, there's an established world and an established story that's kind of vague, but there's some sort of bad thing has happened to the world. Like, they have all these dead pigs, and there's like worms like controlling them and freaking them out. Like, all the crops are dying, and like there's some sort of like natural ecological disaster that's happened. But people still are in suits and ties going to work at factories and stuff. So there's like an established like state of the world. If we were to turn this into a movie, would we just like the easy like thing that always happens now is you just take the story and make it into a movie like piecemeal or like straight up? Would we say no? This is a world that we can then tell a different story in and just like match the tone? Is it?
I think we should do two things.
Okay.
I think the first thing is we should talk about how we would turn this into just a weird, off Hollywood, like off Broadway, basically, sort of tension machine movie, like the game is, like with some sort of, symbolic commentary, which isn't going to be a long discussion. I feel like. I think the second one would be if Hollywood got a hold of it.
Yeah.
What would they
and
do?
Hollywoodified it a lot?
I think we should definitely do that second, so it'll be more fun. But
yeah.
But I think like there is a movie to be made out of this that is silent.
So it's like really experimental, like really weird.
I mean, just completely bizarre.
I'm into that for sure. That's what I would have pitched for as well. Make it silent.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the most faithful adaptation that we could do of this. I think it'd be hard.
Yeah, it'd be fucking difficult.
And I think that you'd have to potentially evaluate the length and how long it is. I don't know if it's sustainable potentially for 2 hours.
Well, we said we're going to try feature length, so let's just talk about it as if it was possible.
Right.
Well, an hour and 20 minutes is feature length.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's the minimum amount you can have and still be considered feature length.
It's funny when you mention and we can talk about this when we get to the Hollywoodification part. But the movie that it most made me think of, the Hollywood version of this movie, would be like Children of Men. Or some other like really bleak.
I'm thinking of a worse movie.
Well, I'm not okay. So, but tone wise, and we can talk about it in this part of the conversation too. About like that movie got a ton of action and a bunch of stuff that wouldn't fit in this movie, but just that like really, really desaturated tone, and the world's in a shitty place, and there's a lot of just moments of like quiet in a cabin in the woods, and like trying to run and escape the authorities, and they don't really have a plan. They don't really know what's going on. You don't really understand the state of the world, or like it's not really explained why things are the way they are. It just is, and you have to just deal with that. I'm not saying it's an exact one-to-one like match, but that's the first thing I thought of as far as a movie that has done some sort of similar tone of like hopelessness, and like you're not gonna. This is not a game about saving the world. I mean, Children of Men ends with a kid being born and that being the kid being safe and that's being great, but like just that tone of like the movie doesn't end and the world isn't great again. It's just like this particular one story, the small story has been completed. That's the closest like an analogy I could think of.
It's weird that you say that because that was Corinth, or That was Coron, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm blanking. Yeah, and I'm also thinking of Gravity. Just because it's a similar thing, like it's, and I brought it up last week, but it's
you love that
Chris
movie.
loves Gravity.
No, but
So every single time we talk about something, like, what about if it was like Gravity?
It's well realized, like it's exactly what it wants to be, and it's like it's this thing where you're just watching somebody face this onslaught of obstacles. Do you know what I mean? There's almost no dialogue in that.
Well, that's
movie.
a good comp. I mean, I was trying to think of something when we started down this road that would be a good comp, and that is one. There's only a couple of scenes where, like, the basic opening the movie. They set it up.
Yeah.
There's talking there, George Clooney and all that stuff, and then
George Clooney just being
got everything you
sexy in
need.
space.
Got George Clooney. Got sexy in space.
he's a dreamy man.
Done. That's set up for a movie. So George Clooney clearly is the kid in this movie, right?
Yes, George Clooney in a mocap
Cast George
suit.
Clooney as a kid.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're gonna do this Robert Zemeckis style Beowulf.
No. Oh no.
Yeah,
It would actually kind of match the horrifying tone of. There'd be some merit to it, but anyway.
but George Clooney will be in the suit.
Okay.
Acting it out. Yeah, we'll just process his voice
Perfect.
when he makes grunt noises.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I interrupted you. The Gravity.
So Gravity, but like, there's not a lot of dialogue. Is the point?
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's very cinematic in that way. And this movie, I feel like, a movie based on Insight could be incredibly cinematic. I mean, there's so many images that are just beautiful and like those giant machines that shoot you, like have the spotlights and they shoot you.
Yeah.
And the spring loaded traps, like there's a whole sequence out of that.
There's that the first time you see those, and then like in the background, you have to turn them on. Like it's one of those
God, it's
beautiful
so brilliant.
like compositions. Like, and it's just so, and also it does add to that, like the tone and the sort of totalitarian like dystopia.
Yeah.
It's such kind of like propaganda looking, like
The big
stark
floodlights,
contrast. Yeah, and it's just so. And it's just beautiful. Like, I just sat there for a second and just like let the characters sit on the screen watching these things look back and forth because they're just so cool looking, you know. But yeah, I think that's a good point. But and it also makes me think about when you said David Lynch, like that feels half right. Do you know what I mean? Because this movie, the game is so physical. The game is so physically motivated and like momentumly motivated that I don't think that feels right for David Lynch. But at the same time, the tonality of David Lynch, it's like if David Lynch somehow directed Gravity, you'd get something close to Inside somehow. You know what I mean?
I've never seen his Dune movie, but I
haven't either.
Oh man.
I mean,
you
attempt
have to watch it.
He did attempt to make a Hollywood movie.
You have to watch it. So that's actually a good point. That segues to something I was thinking about while you guys were talking. Is the production design is going to be like super important because like we have so many jarring buildings and like sets and just like images that we want to capture. Like that kind of production design, like that kind of striking, jarring, weird stuff. In I feel like an Inside movie is going to, like you said, Chris, be half the battle, not just like the.
You need this because if we're gonna make this movie the way that we're talking about making it, where it's silent a lot of like mostly, that translates to cheap. You're not gonna get a whole lot of money for that.
Yeah,
it's
true.
going to be foreign financing, and like 17 different production companies are going to finance it together, and you're never going to make a dime.
This got dark. The realities of movie production.
But where I was going with that is like what you need is to hire incredibly talented art director, incredibly talented CG guys who are super passionate about making the project, because it feels like in order to make it cheaply, you need to CG most of the backgrounds,
right?
You know,
right? Or just it takes 17 years, like Terry Gilliam's latest movie,
and not in a Star Wars prequels way.
No, in a seamless, beautiful, like in the why I say a great art director and people who can execute on that vision is you need somebody who can make what's beautiful about the game real.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Feel or hyper real, more likely, but very beautiful, very very attractive to look at.
It's not quite there, but I keep thinking of Fury Road too, because it is, and it's really similar. It's I think a bit less of a first act than Gravity, but it's still got a little bit more of that setting the world up than we would probably even want for Inside. But it does have that beautiful art direction, and it's so good at defining the world by just hitting the ground running, and you figure it out as you go along. It never sits there and explains anything to you. Do you know what I mean?
Like, there's a lot of like slang and terms that you just have to kind of pick up as you go, and like
it's just you get that in like 2 sentences or whatever, a voiceover that Max says at the beginning, and then he just starts running from something and gets caught, and you just slowly get a sense of these are the people that have power, these are the people that you're running from. These are, you just get looks from Furiosa, like, that suggest that she's going to go rogue before it happens.
Yeah. Even something as stupid as, like, I love this. I love that movie to death. It's, like, my favorite movie in the last 10 years. But, like, there's ladies that are, like, getting milked.
Yeah.
Those giant tits, and they're just getting milked.
Yeah.
And later on, the tanker that they're driving is full of milk.
Yeah.
And they've already established earlier that they trade between, so they're trading milk,
right?
Which is fucking creepy and weird. But nobody stops to explain that.
It just is.
You have an image of a woman getting milked, and he drinks milk that he thinks is going to be water.
And it's so weird, and I didn't make this correlation until right now, but it's so much of that is just based on like there's like literally no resources but humans left, so like they're literally just drinking the one nutritional byproduct of a human. Do you know what I mean? And like I didn't draw those dots until right now, but because he's designed the atmosphere and the story around that kind of thinking, that it just clues you in and narrows you without ever saying it.
But I think the thing to take out of that, which maybe you guys have already, what you're already talking about, I'm just dumbing it down, but the thing to take out of that is like that strong, cohesive logic to the world, where like the story, like the person writing Fury Road knows exactly what all those things are and why they're connected and what the state of the world is and why all of these weird images are the way they are. They're not just random, they're not just weird, goofy, weird shit.
They're not Lindelof.
Right, but that's the thing with Lynch. Like, even the weirdest shit is there for a specific reason, even if you don't get it. And the more we talk about it, the more I feel like, Chris, you're right, that like it wouldn't be Lynch alone to make this. But it ties together in a very specific kind of logic. And Lynch is a little bit obtuse, so we probably don't want to go that obtuse. But like, there is a state of the world that everyone that is working on the movie understands. There's no, I don't know, it just seemed cool and weird, which sometimes I feel like a lot of filmmakers can just put in weird, jarring imagery just to jar people.
I think that you're striding a line, because if we're going to be faithful to the game, the movie also has to be just full of tension and action in a weird way. Mm-hmm. Like it's minimal action.
Yeah.
Or suspense.
There's spikes of action, right?
Like, yeah.
There's spikes of action, but it's suspenseful. Like the whole thing is suspenseful.
It's suspenseful, and there's a scope that is like there's giant things. Do you know what I mean? There's a literal visual like scale between the main kid and the big things that he encounters that are like tools of the opposition. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that. And evading and maneuvering around that kind of thing is going to feel very actiony, just based on the contrast that those pieces place together.
Well, the fact that he feels so powerless and he's just trying to stay alive, stay one step ahead of them. And I think that what's funny about what you said about the scale of things, I totally agree, but also the game feels really claustrophobic, because most of the spaces that you're in are between some floorboards or in a tank of water, or...
Well, it goes back and forth a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I never felt like I was in a wide open space ever. Not once in that game. Even when you're outside, like, everything's oppressive. The trees are really tight. I mean, it's you only see one screen at a time, right? But like, I've never felt like I was in an open field. Even like in like the cornfield, for example, the barn, which is where the first kind of like quote unquote boss thing you have to deal with is. It never felt open and expansive, even though these things, like these massive, huge structures in the background, and they're like big buzzing sounds and just like horrible, loud Brazil-esque, just like things bearing down on you all the time. It always felt claustrophobic to me personally, at least, because every single time you're breaking through a board to duck into a little corner space, to jump over a fence to get away from a dog, to dive through a pool, and now you're underwater, it just always felt claustrophobic to me. Everything's dangling in your face, and wood boards are always like, you know what I mean? Everything just felt ever present in the game when I played it. But you do have those like landscapes behind you of like, they go on forever. Like, the game feels very deep, like off into the distance. Because that is another part of it, where the scale of it just does feel so wide. But the play experience always felt small to me. Like the play space always felt small.
Well, I imagine that the movie would also need, like, you have set pieces in it because, like, again, you're not going to be able to afford a lot of.
It's a lot of matte paintings.
Yeah, or you know, like those giant machines that are just pounding the earth for whatever reason. I mean, God only knows why. Like, you know, those things you get torn apart.
By the sound things,
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's,
Like,
I forgot about that.
See, I always assumed it was a Sonic
doing?
thing because there's those like test rooms with all the test dummies. You know what I mean? Like they're all tied to chairs, and the sound is like blasting through there and like kind of like wobbling around.
It's a weapon.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Maybe? Yeah,
could have been.
but that's. I mean, that's a set piece though. That's a thing where it's like that's a large. You're going to spend a good amount of your money on making that good, and the rest of it is like sneaking into floorboards and crashing through, you know, wood paneling from the ceiling and crashing down and being in barns and things you actually like enhance with CG or whatever, but not have to create whole cloth. I think, you know.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know if you guys have seen 28 Weeks Later. If you ever saw it, but like that movie. And I was in school, I was in college when it came out, but that movie always struck me as having that level of tension that you talked about, Sean, where like there's spikes of action and guns going off and zombies attacking people, but even in the quiet moments, it still felt really tense. Like there's the scene when they escape the city and they're resting in a like overgrown child playground, and there's no music whatsoever. Like they just had a big action scene. You thought there'd be some sort of catharsis, some sort of like emotional music, because they're all chatting about their lives and the things that happened to them after they, you know, sort of calamity hit. And there's a lot of character development in that scene. It's just so tense because there's no exhale. There's no like release of that energy that came out of that. Oh God, we just survived this zombie onslaught. And even back then, it really struck me as like I felt like after I walked out of that movie, I felt like I'd run a marathon. Like I was like holding my breath in periods of that movie, and it didn't give you very many opportunities to like reset emotionally, like breathe out and like exhale and be like, okay, I'm ready for the next big spike. And it definitely feels, just from what you guys are talking about, that's the kind of thing we want to push in this movie, where you're never really safe. You're always one step ahead from your pursuers. There's very few moments to like, you're safe here. It's okay. You can take a moment to breathe, reassess.
There's nothing to do with this. Like that's the thing. If we don't want to like introduce dialogue, right? You have to basically just keep it the story about somebody traveling through a mysterious and strange world and having goals the whole time to kind of pull you through it. Because otherwise, you know, you're just gonna like the reason that those quiet beats work is for character development and to kind of make you like these people so you care if they die. We sort of already are winning in one way, or inherently people care more about children dying. Generally, I think so. If it's a kid that's starring in this, we have that going for us. But there's also like, you know, we can get to this in the Hollywood section. But there's the Hollywood version is you keep cutting to a flashback,
Right.
Yeah.
of what the kid went throughout the movie, or you see the entire first act is the setup for this kid running, and then he keeps running into people who help him. But you know. There's no dialogue, so it needs to exist on the strength of its like
tension.
Tension.
No, I agree completely. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
like, and Fury Road is a good example of this. It's like there's a lot of storytelling in there. There's a lot of character stuff going on between them, but there's not a lot of dialogue.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is you have the bare minimum of setup to care about them and understand what their plight is. And then it just rolls forward and makes you feel like you have knots in your stomach for an hour and a half.
So let me ask you this then: how would we, in a silent movie that doesn't have like 1901 like dialogue cards that pop up, do we get the motivation for that character? Right? Because in a video game, motivation is easy, right? You don't want to die because you don't want the game to be over. Your motivation is to complete the video game and keep your character alive. So how do we get out the boy's motivation? How do we understand what his journey is for and what's at the end of that journey? And again, at the end of Inside, you are a blob on the beach and it sort of fades out, and that's kind of left to your interpretation. But in this particular instance, in a non-interactive medium, how do you get out what this kid is trying to accomplish?
Well, I think it's interesting because, like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie that does this, and this would be one to try it. I don't know if it would work, but and I think you mentioned it, Sean, that it is a kid, it's a boy, and it's depending on the strength and the cuteness of the actor. Like the audience would kind of be on the side sooner than if it was just a guy, and you'd be like kind of piecemealing together what he's running from. But I think if you literally started like with a frame like that was just a beautiful like composition. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, you kind of, like, slowly push forward, and, like, in the foreground, just, like, the kid's foot hits the ground and starts running. Like, immediately, the audience is going to be like, what's he running from? What's happening? And depending on how scared the kid is, like, you could keep him hooked for a little while.
So you're saying we do want faces in this movie?
I think, well, yeah, but, I mean, even if there was no face, you could still get...
I don't think... faces.
Scared.
But I would say
I'm voting for faces.
I would vote for faces, too, but I would say you probably don't see... the adults' faces, kind of like E.T.
Oh, that's
style.
cool. Yeah, interesting.
They're always sort of blurry in the background, or they're things are moving fast enough you don't get a good glimpse. They're in shadow.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I feel like that would probably go a long way towards keeping you grounded to the plight of this character.
Yeah, you can't identify with anyone else.
Like the game did, in a way, because they are all faceless.
But that's still my question. Still exists, right? Like, how do you, like, at hour 60 or minute 60, and he's halfway through his journey? Like, how do we get that? As a viewer.
Well, I think you could get sympathy for the clones. I think you sort of get some anyway through the game, like seeing
kind of
what's happening to them through his eyes. And I wouldn't be opposed to maybe adding like a locket or like a picture or something that he's carrying with him to kind of that he looks
of
at
the blob.
I'd put that in our back pocket. Like I would try to avoid that.
You film that and you cut it.
As soon as you start introducing that kind of element, you start to get into the second version of this movie.
Right.
But like that's the thing is that we might need to dip our toe into those things because they work, and like that's a language that viewers understand, right?
They work, but they can be a crop.
Oh yeah, and they can be garbage too, for sure.
But what I was thinking is like what you might do is like you get that running thing that you exhaust that he's running from something for as long as you can, and then maybe he falls into something where he encounters the first like zombie thing, and it's kind of like limp or like has trouble or something, and like he just starts to be inquisitive about it. Like he's strapped in a room or something with it, and he like sees that it starts moving, and he starts to realize that it's gentle, and he kind of like touches it, and you kind of have like an Iron Giant moment, but without the dialogue, where like he kind of gets the sense that it's benign, you know what I mean? And it starts to help him, and then like somehow he does something, and it like is able to walk, and it fixes him, and then it just starts following him around, and he's like, what the hell? You know, it's kind of like a dog. You know, and then like all of a sudden it helps him get out of that room,
right?
And then he falls and he sees more of them. Do you know what I mean? And then it becomes like it'll kind of roll and snowball, and he'll start to have these nonverbal interactions with these kind of things that are clearly trying to help him.
And I think you could add specific nonverbal stories to those characters. You know, like this guy's arm is broken. He's like they have different personalities, quote unquote. I would say,
yeah.
But they don't talk. They just sort of like interact in different ways, and like when he has to part with some of them, it's sad in a way. You know, he knows he's leaving them behind to this terrible place we just saw them in because he can't take them with him, or they helped him get out, and that's enough for them. Yeah, you know, I don't know if they feel anything in the game, but I think you could. I'm talking like it's not necessarily even surface level. It's just sort of like buried a little bit.
So that actually raises an interesting question for me too, which is how much of the world do you think the boy understands in the game, right? Because he's running, so he understands the threat, presumably. And there's never we don't get a ton of reactions because nobody has faces, but there's never a body reaction to seeing these zombies, we'll call them. So I always assumed that he knew exactly what they were and what they were for and how they worked. That was just my interpretation of it. But I mean, as far as the movie goes, it would probably make more sense where he thinks he's trying to save this thing and it's not moving because it's just dead weight or whatever. And he learns about it that way. But it does raise a question about how much the boy is a part of this world, because it's left up to interpretation, right? But like, how do we present that? How do we want to present that in the movie?
Well, you'd have to create an arc for the kid. You know what I mean? Like it will be even in a silent. Like if it did start, this is like potentially the bad pitch and the simplest one. But like if it did start, he's running, and then he runs into these things, and then by the end of the movie, in the kind of the spirit of the game, he's running towards the enemy with an army of guys behind him, or you know what I mean, or he.
Well, no, but what I was going to say is, if we did go with that revolution idea, right, as a through line, you could see him sort of start the threads of that with less of these things, get more of them, and then that culminating in the blob.
Right.
If we're going to do it literally,
Yeah.
you know, we could just take that, but we could punch that idea up visually.
Yeah, I think you'd have to sell
Like,
what's happening.
At some point, for instance, like in Act 2, end of Act 2, you would have the kid help a bunch of these the clones in order, like, right, this doesn't happen in the game, but having him get them into a place that they kind of just go in and get back at people,
right,
and then he goes on.
Just like leave all of them in the room with the workers and just close that door on them.
Right?
Kind of
Yeah. Or like that's the way to get through. Like
right.
They basically volunteer and they all get mowed down, and then at the end it feels really good because he gets the blob and just tears through. A bunch of them. You know. And then ends up on a beach and it's pointless.
Can we just at least have the exact scene where you just knock that dude out the window, just splat him into like ragu on the floor, and just like the blood is just on your body forever?
For sure.
Can we just steal that scene so everyone goes, "Oh, it's the scene from the game"? That's my favorite scene in the whole game.
Oh, that's so good.
So we have like 10 minutes left. Let's talk about the Hollywood version of this.
Yeah. So first of all, the blob is 300 stories tall.
And it's the bad.
Hang on. 300 stories?
Yeah. The kid has
300 stories.
300 stories.
It's like taller than the World Trade Center.
It's huge.
Okay, and it's
what's going to happen is they're going to have the big fucking cool robot that's chasing you the whole time, and then the blob's going to be even fucking bigger than that. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, no, you just Katamari Damacy like all the other zombies up, and it gets big enough to fight it. Like it's big, and then the bigger robot shows up, and then you roll all the other zombies into it, and then it grows to the right size.
Yeah. Well, it rolls through a city.
Yeah,
it picks up more people the whole time and keeps growing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it just can like form like arms out of them or something.
And it's not as gross looking. It's like a sexier blob. There's a bunch of supermodels.
All right, now we're touching on exec notes level.
Yeah. It's so going backwards though. The kid has parents that die at the beginning of the movie.
Yep, got to motivate him.
Or like a sister or something.
No, I mean, I think you should lose your whole family, right? Because that's the, like, more people equals more tragic.
It's not even that. It's his entire, like, resistance group.
But it is his family, and they get caught by, like, the opposing forces, and then he's got to get inside the fucking place.
Oh, shit. And then, so the title is that, but then a bunch of bullets through the text.
I would say that it's actually more like... His mother, like, as she's dying, gives him, like, a scrap of paper and says, "Go find your aunt."
Oh,
she's in the resistance, you know, or whatever.
Fuck,
and then she's, like, a tough as nails, like, resistance fighter because this mother was never never good enough or never bold enough to try and actually fight back. So the kid gets involved in the resistance, and then he has to sneak into the factory with her, and they pretend to be...
oh man!
And they almost get caught a couple times.
So hang on. So like in the intro, would they just be in their house trying to eke out a meager existence, and like fucking like jackboot dude just like puts his boot through the door? And
it's like the beginning of Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He just like comes in and just lays waste to his town. He's like the sole survivor, hides under a bunch of bodies, and like rolls out days later.
The version of it that I think would be he's sitting there and his his mother is executed in front of him. You know,
we get slow motion of him going.
Yeah. It falls in front of his face.
What movie is this? This is a movie. I know this
is Conan the Barbarian.
It's a bunch of other movies too.
Just saying that, but then he gets taken and escapes like on the way. You know.
So okay, I got a pitch for you though.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of the X-Men movies, but not as good.
Yeah. Okay.
He's like in a
yes,
van.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. He somehow manages to like escape the van. You know,
and then he rolls down the hill.
It's a huge action set piece where the van like skids over the side of a bridge and it's like hanging by a tire for some reason. and then the back doors open up for some reason, and he's dangling with one hand, and he manages to crawl all the way up the van to the along the outside and like back to the bridge right before it falls, and the enemies all go falling into the bridge.
I got a pitch for you.
The water.
I got a pitch for you. So let's say he escapes, or he is his family or his town or whatever is mowed down. Right. He starts out with a white shirt. And all him just like crawling through corpses, just like covers his shirt in red blood, and that's why he's wearing the red shirt.
That's so good.
And everybody else is either wearing black or white.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you get the black and white like Nazi imagery, right? And then he's just the only one wearing like a shirt that's just like it's not fully red, obviously, but it's like red enough that it looks like the red shirt. From
and he gets away, and like it cuts away from him, right? And then we see like a pair of like boots step to the edge of like the hill that he fell down.
Oh, absolutely.
And then there's like some guy with some big stupid identifiable gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or he's like he's a very obvious dude in like a. You have to have the antagonist, right? So you have like the scar-faced dude from high up in the chain.
And he would smoke like if this were made in the 80s, but now since like
no, he totally can because he's a bad guy, right?
Oh yeah.
And then he drops a cigarette in the ground and like puts it out with his boot. That's the only shot. That's a shot of the boots, right?
And he's got like an underling who's played by like Rob Schneider.
Whoa!
You know what I mean? Like,
this movie took a turn. This is just Judge Dredd, the original Judge Dredd.
That's
movie.
true. Yeah.
Well, the boots. I think he doesn't have an identifiable gun. His boots are identifiable because that's all he ever sees of him. He's like under a bed or whatever, and he just sees the boots.
Oh my god!
And the boots have
good.
like this special pair of boots that have like gold laces.
Well, no, well, it's just they're like really beautiful like saddle shoes or something,
Or
he's just walking around the whole movie looking at people's shoes.
Show me your shoes. Got a gun.
He's under a bed in Act 2 somewhere, and the like shoes come in, and he's like, "Oh, it's not them."
But I bought a different pair of shoes. That's the twist. That's the Act 2 twist, actually. He's not wearing those shoes anymore.
Yeah, he took them off.
And then he meets like
I wear the same shoes all the time, man.
He just opens his closet. There's like 17 pairs of those shoes.
The kid that keeps running, and he meets like one of the zombie guys, and it's like the fucking Jar Jar Binks of this universe.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah,
super.
One of them, he manages to like wake him up, and he turns.
He's the
into,
comic
like,
relief character. Yeah.
And he just won't shut up.
That's the Rob Schneider character.
Why are you talking? We're gonna get caught.
That's the Rob Schneider.
Oh, I've been sleeping for however long. I'm made by this company. You know what I mean?
He gives you all the deets. Yeah.
Detail, exposition.
Oh, and he's got a backstory too. His backstory is that his wife, you know how this movie ends. He has the Randy Quaid moment at the end of Independence Day where he crawls into the blob because his wife's in there.
Oh man, I'm home.
And then they roll through the city where they got demolished that he grew up in.
Oh man! So the final shot has to be their two hands like reaching out and like holding head.
Yeah.
But and they win, but it's all by like slapstick happenstance. Like they're not actually trying to achieve anything. It's just the blob.
Yeah, it's just
the blob
chaos
tumbling down.
Well, the blob rolls through the town and pulls up all the evil people and somehow makes them good.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. They shake it off and they're like,
and the blob, like everybody else's like body part is hanging out of it, but our stupid like Jar Jar Binks character, it's just for some reason just his fucking face.
Yeah, it's his face.
So he can still talk.
Yeah. Can he like use multiple hands and they all fight with each other, like slapping each other and like poking him in the eyes and like weird Three Stooges shit, please?
Oh god, it'd be so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're handing the enemies up to each other and ripping them in half.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Like you got him, honey. Yeah, I got him.
Oh, and then he's talking. He's got like multiple heads and talking to himself.
Him and his wife are talking to each other
on either side of the block. Oh, that's the tragic part. They can never see each other.
They each have one hand, and then they somehow like stretch it and fucking high five each other.
Man.
Well,
yeah, and it's not. It's like. It's not. There's nothing tragic about it. What happens at the end of the movie is they somehow have managed to figure out a way that they can coexist with all these other hundreds of people, and the blob is just cute now.
Yeah, it becomes a town. The town is restored, but all in one organism, right? Like all the people from the original, like the first scene of the movie where everyone's killed, are now in the blob, and they're all living a weird fucking existence together as a blob.
The last shot is definitely the kid holding one of the thousands of hands sticking out of the blob, and they walk into the sunset.
No, the kid's in the blob.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not in this version.
Oh, the Hollywood version. Okay, sorry.
No, what happens
the Hollywood version.
Okay, my mistake.
Nobody's going to be happy.
The kid, while the blob is tearing the town up as a distraction, the kid is fighting the guy with the boots.
Right, of course.
And then he manages somehow to kill him with his own boots.
Yeah.
That he used to kill his mother.
You know what he does? Is that he fucking puts his boots on the blob, like one of the feet on the blob, and then it tramples it, and like... When it rolls over him, it's just that his boot fucking happens to push his head in the ground.
So how do we get the creepy mermaid in? Is that the love interest?
They're not creepy mermaids. They're misunderstood mermaids.
Yeah, she ends up being super sexy or some shit, right? Like, that's the weird, awkward teen romance that happens in this movie.
Yeah, there's definitely a romance between.
Well, the thing about truthfully, right? Like in that game, the whole time she's trying to help you, and you don't realize until you can't get away. She grabs you, and like it's that moment where you think the game's over, and she like brings you down and like plugs the thing into your chest and allows you to breathe underwater, and like that whole sequence where you're like, oh, I'm dead. Oh, she was actually trying to help me, or at least make me like her, so she has someone to spend time with. So there is that like quote unquote misunderstood. You didn't understand what I was trying to do. You were scared because I was ugly and weird looking, but then you got to know me, and I was actually a pretty cool guy.
You never see her face until she like pulls the giant hair
out
of her face, and she's beautiful.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So she's really freaky.
The kid is 26 and playing a 17-year-old in this.
That sounds perfect
in this version. So that they can.
When 90210 it. Yeah, again. Yeah.
They're like, we can't make a 10-year-old bone, can we? like
it's just someone.
We gotta make them older, age them up.
Hey, Johnny, can you check if we can make a 10-year-old bone? Can someone look into that?
And he just goes, no, from the other room.
Shit, everyone's fuck. It's like 7 different unanimous.
Already 17.
Yeah.
All right, I guess he's 18. Sorry, 18.
What's Shia LaBeouf doing these days?
They would star Shia LaBeouf.
He's dead.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see Shia LaBeouf being the main character. Who else do you feel like we could use for
whatever 20-year-old actress is on the cover of Maxim.
Oh, for the girl?
That's the mermaid.
That's the mermaid.
Yeah. What about the
doesn't matter if she can act. Who gives a shit?
So we can literally get Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox.
It's going to be like Ariana Grande or something. It's going to be.
It'll be someone that's really hot.
Oh yeah, because it's a mermaid.
It's going to be a singer.
Oh shit! Yeah, she does the main theme song. Fuck! It's full Will Smith in Wild Wild West situation.
Yeah.
All right, I'm into it.
This is great.
This is good, guys.
This is way better than the movie we came up with.
We cracked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in theaters 2020. How long does it take to make? How long do you think to shoot this?
It cost $250 million minimum.
Yeah. Makes all its money back in China.
There are 1,250 special effects shots, and the budget, most of the budget is put against the Blob special effects, so they use it over and over again.
Yeah, well, you actually find the Blob in like the first half of the movie. And how many like product placements do you think we can get in this movie? We gotta have so much like Pepsi signs and like this old discarded Pepsi signs.
Coca-Cola makes the most sense of the color scheme.
That's true, and you can have like the cans kicked around in the foreground.
It's the only other thing that's red.
Oh, perfect!
Wait, and on all the computers are fucking Apple? Because there is definitely the fucking amazing scene where the kid turns on a computer and he starts reading about all the plans that the corporation are doing with the people.
Yeah, yep,
and perfect. It's definitely an Apple computer. It's going to be a stark black Apple computer with a big glowy white apple on the back of it.
Oh man, and then maybe the kid finds out his mother is in the Blob too, and she's still alive.
Hey, Mom, you in there?
Yeah.
And then just a face
she comes out of the Blob at the end of the movie, and she's like, "Thanks, son, for saving me," and gives him a kiss and like some kind of like she like licks her finger and tries to rub some dirt off his face. You know,
you've grown to a real good man. You've grown up so much.
Now take off that shirt so I can wash it.
Yeah. Done. I love it.
Yeah, that's the last shot of the movie.
It's just like rubbing a smudge off his face, and he's like, "Mom." Like,
yeah. Well, then they grab hands and walk off into the sunset together. But then we pan out and it's the whole Blob.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. This is great.
His mom.
Well,
his dad actually has to die though.
Yeah,
there has to be stakes, guys.
Yeah, well, he has the zombie friend now. That's his new father.
And it's not his dad; it's his stepdad, who he's just getting close to.
Well, his dad died a long time ago. It was he worked for this corporation and tried to stop them from doing evil things. Oh,
God damn it!
And that's why they're on the run.
Yeah, and
they tracked him down, right?
Yeah.
Well, then his stepfather, then he never really like got to know his stepfather. He like never really accepted him as a father. So then like he gets killed and he feels like he fucking lost out his opportunity to like have a real father in his life because he was a real like shitty bratty teenager to his stepdad who tried to be a good dad to him, and he just like it's just the fucking stepdad from or the foster dad from Terminator 2, where they're like good people and he just kind of like doesn't appreciate them and then they fucking die.
There's a good he's like running away like the last time he sees him he says like, "Oh, you're not my dad, Philip."
Yeah.
He calls him
Frank.
Yeah.
So how do we get the movie title into the script though? We gotta have someone say the word inside, right? That feels like a pretty Hollywood move.
Well, here's what happens in the third act. The Blob gets captured, and he's got all the zombie people, and he's like, "I gotta get back inside.
Okay, that's good. That's great.
Yeah, they escape the factory with the blob, and then the blob gets
Get her back
recaptured.
inside.
Yeah.
And there's a shot that's in the trailer where there's 500 helicopters carrying a giant blob.
With like having a string
into
like,
some like enormous hangar doors that for some reason existed before this giant blob did.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I think we really nailed a really good movie. We were talking about a kind of crap movie before, but this one feels like
We got it.
domestic. I don't know. International probably make a lot of money.
It might be too weird. But you know who plays the blob guy? Dax Shepard.
Kevin James. Oh.
Wow, we just went two different directions for
Yeah,
this movie.
it could be Kevin James.
He's
I
just
was watching Idiocracy earlier today.
Okay, if it's Kevin James and it is full like there is no stakes because that just becomes fucking. He just blarts it up all over the place, just fucking knocking things over and falling on his face and just like
No, you know.
that's gonna leave a mark and just shit like that.
It's definitely Josh Gad. It's not Kevin James. It's Josh Gad.
Yeah, these days you're right. It would be Josh Gad.
Got it. Thanks for listening to this.
It's Josh Gad on the phone.
Okay,
If we can get him
speed
attached
dial.
to this fucking thing, we're maybe got it made.
See if we can.
If any other listeners out there know how to get a hold of him,
Yeah, if anybody can talk to Josh Gad and just tell him to
we got a project he's gonna be real
license
excited
this,
about.
option it. It's called option
Josh Gad, if you're listening.
it. Yeah, Josh Gad.
You're a fan of this podcast,
I barely know who you are. I'm sorry.
but you know who we are. If you listen to this podcast,
Oh yeah, he knows us.
Come on.
Who doesn't?
this is the like multi-million-dollar dream machine in here, making movies just left and right.
Yeah.
Great.
This podcast is always going to end with us going, well,
Nailed
somebody
it.
give us millions of dollars to
Do that thing.
do this thing.
Yep.
This is probably our best shot, though.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think a couple of the other ones that we come up with are pretty damn good too. This is the closest to a thing that already exists for sure.
See, if Michael Bay was listening right now, we could literally call him
Wow.
and he still would give us money to make this movie because he's stupid.
Okay. Wow. Well, thanks for listening. I don't have a good way to end this podcast because I don't know what we're going to talk about next time. So.
Well, and that's it.
Goodbye.
We promise we will not do the bad version next time.
Yeah, when we have the actual option to make this movie, we won't do the bad one.
Harrison just winked.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can't hear that.
He legitimately did wink and expected you to hear it. All right.
Well, goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for joining us this week. Next week, we're going to mix it up a little bit and take the 3 Star Wars prequel movies and sort of remake them and turn them into like a better version of themselves. So join us next week. If you have any feedback, you can follow us on Twitter at StoriedCast, or you can email us any feedback or any ideas for future shows at storiedcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.